everybody. Another episode of the Zapp Comics Radio Podcast. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for all your support. The iTunes downloads and people subscribing on there has been amazing. And everywhere else you can find us. I can't thank you guys enough. Even YouTube we're getting some hits on. So thank you so much. I'm glad you guys enjoy it. If you have any suggestions, please message us through Facebook or YouTube or wherever, and we'll try and do our best to accommodate that. I got a couple friends with me tonight. I got Patrick James McCloskey, who, as you know, works at Zapp Comics here in Wayne, New Jersey. He doesn't say much, do you?
Yeah. I don't know how to answer that.
Okay. And we got the Dr. Jonny Knoll.
Hi.
So he's been here before. He'll be here again. And, of course, I'm your host, Corry. I'm a co-owner of Zapp Comics. And here we go. Listen, guys, I know this is a great time of year. May is a fun month because you got, all the big movies come out. You get Memorial Day. But more importantly, the first Saturday in May, every single year, is always Free Comic Book Day. Big deal. But it wasn't always a big deal. Now, Pat, you're a pup.
Okay.
You're a youngin'.
Yeah.
You just turned, 23?
Yes.
Okay, so you're young. Johnny and I are almost at 40.
Okay.
We didn't have Free Comic Day because we were in the boom of comics because our generation ruined comics because we bought everything and everything and everything and everything. We got 20 copies of Spawn #1 and the gold foil cover, and the comic market crashed in the late 90s, early 2000s, and it almost didn't survive. One of the things that made it survive and to get it built back up was the creation of Free Comic Book Day. So now it's huge. Now Free Comic Book Day is basically like Comic-Con for stores. Where you just 6-7 years ago, it wasn't like this. It was like a little day. Even Comic-Cons weren't that big of a deal. Like, everybody went, but it wasn't like crazy. Now, New York and San Diego Comic-Con, as you guys know, it's like, there's blood. We're trying to get these tickets. Everyone wants to go. It's the thing to do. It's very mainstream now, which is great. Same thing with comics. Comics are booming right now, and a lot of it has to do with Hollywood and the movies. And Free Comic Day is very smartly, it coincides with the release of these big movies. Again, it's usually the 1st of May when these movies come out, or around that first weekend of May. This year, obviously, you have Avengers Age of Ultron, which comes out May 1st. Free Comic Day is May 2nd. Now, back in the 2000-2001 area, a gentleman named Joe Field, who is the owner, I think, of Flying Colors Comics in Concord, California, used to write articles and columns and magazines for comics, in a comics and game retailer magazine, which stores would get for us owners to read. He had suggested a Free Comic Book Day, and it got good reception. And Jim Valentino, who is one of my all-time favorite people on earth from his run on Guardians of the Galaxy in the 90s, and I was also a big Shadowhawk fan when Image got founded and created, because he's one of the founders for that. He suggested doing it in May to coincide with the release of Spider-Man #1, which was May 4th, 2002 was the first comic day.
Okay.
So now it coincides with a big movie. It didn't always do that, but now it's going strong. It's on its 13th year. And the last 4 or 5 years, it's been a big movie, and it comes out. So pretty much, as you can see, they book these movies years in advance now. You can see what's coming out, and the next 4 or 5 Mays are already booked.
Mm-hmm.
So, not to keep rambling, but I want to showcase Free Comic Day because it wasn't always this big, and people get confused when they see the word free. Now, Free Comic Day, it means it's a free day. You get free stuff, only certain books, but it's not free to us. We actually pay for the books. It's not a lot of money, but in order to order enough for everybody, it adds up.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Pat, you see people lined up. We open at 8 o'clock in the morning. There's a line down the street at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
They come running in, grab stacks of books. It's great. The thing I'm trying to, I know, Johnny, you've always been a big supporter of this, is that day you come in, if you grab something for free, no matter what store you go to, you don't have to come to Zapp, you can go to any store you want, buy something.
Mm-hmm.
Just as a thank you, because the whole reason why this day is here is mostly it's for kids to get into comics and for people to read. It's a thank you from us to them, but at the same time, you get a lot of people that come in, they literally take one of every single title, and they walk out the door, and the first thing is they say, do you have any more? And they give you kind of an attitude if you say, listen, we're trying to limit it, it's and that, and they go, you said it's free, and you never see them again.
Yep.
Which hey, listen, it's free comic day, but it's one of those things. It's called common courtesy. It's unwritten rule.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I want you to come in here and throw money at me, but like it's a nice thing to do. It's like, you come in, like we have signings, sketchings all across the globe. People do this. It's insane. Now, Pat, I remember you waiting in line.
Oh yeah, my first time. Like
when you just got into comics.
Ago. Yeah.
And we had Dan Slott signing here.
Yeah.
I remember you waiting in line. I remember you were a regular. I remember seeing you in line.
Yeah. I got here early to get a good spot in line or whatever, and we got to meet Dan Slott.
It was cool.
Yeah, it was great. But you guys also do the sale too that coincides with it, right? So.
Well, we decided to sale because like 4 or 5 years ago, we noticed the store went from like when I first started working at Zapp, it was like 2006, 2007. I remember Free Comic Day. We had a little table up front. We put the books on the table, and like people would just kind of trickle in. And we had tons left over because years after that, we would bring out the Free Comic Days from the year before to put them on the table.
Yeah.
Now we have to get our own comics to put in there later in the day because we run out.
Yeah, I mean, all I've seen since I've been a part of this is like madness. It's just like a madhouse with the lines and like people shopping in the store. So you're saying it hasn't always been like that?
No, Johnny knows we didn't have Free Comic Day. To us, I was still in the comics after 2000, 2001, but I wasn't like diehard. I was kind of casually into it. But to me, I ignored Free Comic Day because if I looked at the titles that were coming out, a lot of times they weren't like. Now they were like big crossover events.
Yeah,
or it's
something new in it.
Yeah, or it kicks off an event. They didn't do that back then. I think the first time I really noticed that was Blackest Night. Zero came out. That's when I really noticed. People were like, "Wow," because you remember, Johnny, we didn't have this. We didn't need it.
It was like people would come in, but it would be like. There was nothing here. There was no line. There was nothing.
And they would just grab one. Now it's like, but you know what it is? They promote it great. It's TV advertising, local radio advertising, national, and the best thing about it, it's not a set date. It's always the first Saturday. It's not like you don't have to say what date. You just say it's the first Saturday in May. And it's very easy to remember that. Yeah. The weather's getting good. Like I said, there's always a big movie hitting that Friday, so it's the next day. The only unfortunate part is if you work here like myself, and I'm here 100 hours a week before, I can't see that movie, so it gets spoiled for me on that day.
It's not stopping me.
But Pat's gonna go see it regardless. But no, I'm not complaining. Believe me, it's fun. It's a fun ride, and this coincides with how big Comic-Con is getting. Because Comic-Con, we always carry tickets. We no longer do because they don't need us to carry them, which is fine. Mm-hmm. But for years, like Comic-Con, I remember we would send some tickets back, and then all of a sudden, like 4 years ago, it was like, wait a minute, people are calling us the day of Comic-Con from like 3 hours away, come driving to us to buy the ticket, then going in, and then the next year it was like mayhem. And then last year, I mean, we had people lined up the night before for Comic-Con tickets.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It was absolutely nuts. So it's I mean, this is great. It's exploding. Like this is our busiest. This is our has a Black Friday feel to it here. Mm-hmm. It's insane. I mean, Johnny, you've been shopping with us. I know you help us at the store a lot. I mean, you see it. You come in the middle of the day, and it's like 3 hours after we open.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, it's I mean, it helps. Of course, you have the sale and everything like that, but well, even I like that Don Slott year. That was just nuts. I mean, just people down the.
You know why? Because Superior Spider-Man had just come out, and and Dan Slott, I remember I reached out to him, and he just happened to be free, and we got him in here, and the nicest guy on earth. And that line was like down the street for him, and it was.
You guys had like intervals for times. Right?
Yeah, and he was so nice, so engaging, and that was at the heat of the criticism saying you killed Peter Parker and all those death threats he got and all that crap because people are lunatics, and he handled it like it was awesome. Everybody was so polite to him. He took us. I remember there was a variant cover for one of them, and I remember clearly. One of our reservists and one of our good customers, Ryan Maddock, got it, and when he signed it, he wrote, "This is the first one of these I've ever signed." So it was cool because it came out that Wednesday, and he didn't seen it because he came in on Saturday. So that was really, really neat having him come in. And last year we had Tom Palmer here, a legendary inker for years, so engaging. And this year we have Chris Campana, a nice local artist who does a fantastic. His style is like. Kind of like the fantasy He-Man type stuff. Does great work. And Nick Justice, who went to the Kubert School. Oh yeah, nice guy. They're gonna be doing free sketches, and they're gonna bring some of their stuff to sell from their arts and their prints. And we also have Frank Barbieri, who is the writer for Five Ghosts. Great image title. We had him here before. We had a huge turnout, and we're gonna have it again. He's also doing a lot of stuff. He does Avengers World, Solar Man of the Atom, He did a couple the Dark Horse books, so very, very cool. Plus we have just it's just a fun experience. Dan Didio usually stops by during the day because he lives locally, and he's very engaging. So, but in the years past, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's fun. Everybody understands what it means for the industry and especially for the stores, because it gets you going to a store. So I know I keep repeating myself, but if you go to a store for this day, please contribute somehow, even if it's just buying $1 kids book. It's a way to give thanks to these stores, and hopefully it gets some kids to read books, because it's a big epidemic now, or dilemma, whatever you want to say, with kids. They go from diapers to video games, and they're gone. Like the average crowd for us is like late high school, early college. It's like 18 to like 27 is our main demographic now, because they have money to spend, they have time. They get married later on in their 30s, so that 20s is when they get their job, a career, they get their money, they're spending money, they're coming and buying all the covers and trades, and like yourself, Pat. I mean, you used to buy every title on the shelf.
Yeah, when I first got started.
Yeah, so now you streamlined it, but you still pay attention to it.
Oh yeah, great stuff.
So I know you don't understand, but Free Comic Day wasn't like this. So this is new to us. It still feels weird to me in a way, because I remember it was a short time ago. It wasn't like this. Yeah, the movies weren't like this either. It's almost like happened overnight.
Mm-hmm.
We just waited for new Batman movies to come out. That's pretty much all we got.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't into this when like that stuff started happening, but like when Spider-Man first came out, like how much did that change things? Like that was the year the first Free Comic Book Day happened, right?
Yeah, well, I remember asking Ben, who's my co-owner for Zapp, like, because after like people think, oh, the movies come out, it draws people into the stores. It doesn't necessarily do that. It does now, more from merchandise than books.
Right. Yeah.
But I remember I said, what was the one movie you saw happen? He said, when Spider-Man hit. He said that really brought people in getting books, because X-Men was good, but Spider-Man really changed it, and Iron Man did it. I remember when the first Iron Man hit, and Avengers really, really did it. Avengers changed.
See, I think they all kind of built on each other, but I think where it's that party atmosphere where it was Avengers.
The first Avengers really, I think
that's
made it into an event,
because Iron Man was big. It was big,
but it wasn't expected, because nobody knew what it was, and everybody and they didn't know it was going to be that big. I mean,
and then Cap and Thor did well, but they weren't monumental successes. They did very well, but they weren't like blockbusters. But they were basically like commercials and previews for Avengers, and it paid off because Avengers was monumental. And the thing about Avengers too was Hulk stole the movie, because that first Hulk movie was awful. And the Norton one, people kind of liked it, but didn't do really, really well. Then he was off the project. So it was a third Hulk, and for 3 straight movies, a different Hulk. And Ruffalo nailed it, and then he stole all the scenes in the movie. And it really changed. And Hulk is, kids love the Hulk. Everybody likes the Hulk. So it really changed. And then ever since then, it has never looked back. Guardians of the Galaxy came out, and they're like, wait a minute, this is working. And now, I mean, you look at
anything they make.
Every other month now, there's something lined up.
Yeah.
And then you got a little movie called Star Wars coming out at the end of the year, which is going to change the entire industry again, because people forgot how big that is. I know you don't know this, Pat, because you're a prequel kid, but
what? No, I'm just whatever. I'm excited. Yeah, should be good.
It's gonna be awesome. Yeah. So I can't wait. I'm not sure when you guys are listening to this. My Free Comic Day might already happen, but just understand that this is it's a big deal. You live the age of comics right now. I'm not gonna say golden age, but it's never been hotter as far as how mainstream it was. When we were kids, nobody had comic book T-shirts. You know what I mean? There was like a couple.
The first one was Batman. When Batman came out.
89 Batman.
89
yes,
Batman.
Yes.
That was the change. That was the first
changed
change.
Everything.
Because that's when people started to have the T-shirts.
You gotta remember Joker T-shirts, Batman T-shirts.
Everywhere.
And the hats.
But then talking about comic books, because people were in comic books, but it didn't explode because then they started talking about the value of comic books when the thing, and look how much.
And Batman was dark. So Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen, Killing Joke really, really came into fold, because people were our parents are so into Batman, they think of Adam West. It was goofy, it was corny, it was fine, but it was dated. So this really changed it. But then, unfortunately, Batman killed itself by making worse and worse movies, and it just went away. And then X-Men kind of changed it again. When, Hugh Jackman kind of changed it. And then, obviously, Spider-Man 1 really changed it. It even survived Spider-Man 3 because that really tried to change it, and they ignored it. But, so now we're in, it's a golden age of comic movies, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Because I actually get mad that I'm not a kid right now because, like, you see all these beautiful movies and it's like it's hard to enjoy them because you're working all the time. And I mean, thankfully, I work in this industry, but like, I would love to be like, a 23-year-old Patrick James McCluskey, with his buddies. And,
it's great.
And IMAX Row J.
Row J.
Just seeing these movies,
Yeah. No, it's really awesome. And like, I'm just glad I got into this all. It's a really good time to get into comics. There's like something for everybody, even if you're not into the superhero stuff. I mean, Image puts out a lot of stuff that appeals to different crowds and stuff like that.
Yeah, comics now, I think they're stronger than they ever had before because if you go back and look 15 years ago, if you look at the hottest things, everybody knows the artist. It was Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, Silvestri, Jim Lee, Ed McGuinness, all these major artists. Now, they only know the writers, which shows you they're reading them. Because when we were kids, most people just bought comic books like they were baseball cards. They wanted the shiny covers. Oh, this is going to be great. Oh, look at this splash page, which is fine. But now it's so reader-friendly that the top 100 people are writers. Like Hickman and, DeConnick and Brian K. Vaughan and... Kieran Gillen and Frank Barbieri, but you know all the writers now because they're readers. 90% of people who buy them now are reading them.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our customers will just say pull whatever this.
Yeah, pull any Warren Ellis book.
Yeah.
Okay, back in the day, it was pull any Todd McFarlane book.
Right.
And it's not saying it's bad, but it's a different, and that's why trades are so strong. Nobody's reading.
Well, I mean, it was traditionally always the writer. I mean, people think, but it
no,
was
I know,
the writer.
but
I mean, through the 80s still. I mean, it was still the writer.
No, I know.
And then when McFarlane came and all those Image guys,
it changed it. Yeah.
They became all stars. They were driving the industry.
Yes. And then that switched over, and that's where the artist became the king.
And they took off, especially with Image, because those were all artists, and it changed everything. Then it started to die down, but the writing and the writers really brought it back up. So now you have stronger stories, and especially all the independent stuff. Like Image, and all these college kids love Saga, Sex Criminals, Black Science. Black Science is huge. Bitch Planet's red hot. You get Fuse and Rebels and Red One and Castaways. Outcast, Walking Dead. I mean, I forgot all about Kirkman, Walking Dead. Everybody knows this stuff now. It's different, I mean, art still drives it, obviously, because anytime there's a cool McFarlane cover, it goes crazy. Adam Hughes and J. Scott Campbell, stuff like that. But Dan, now Dan Slott is probably the greatest Spider-Man writer ever. His arc that he's been doing, he's been writing it for forever.
Oh yeah.
Because if you think about Spider-Man arcs, it's hard to pinpoint certain ones. Like Craven's Last Hunt, Death of Gwen Stacy, but it's like there's nothing major now. Slott's overlapping thing is big, and people love it. I mean, he brought him to Superior and back, and he's still, going. Yeah. So, the creators, it's great that the hand it's in their right hands now, and the industry is so healthy. It's amazing. You see the shows, you see the conventions, how many people are lined up there buying books, and the panels. We didn't have panels when we went to Comic-Con back in the day. Now there's panels, and they just discuss comics, and there's lines for days at that. I mean, obviously, Walking Dead has really, really brought a lot of the stuff mainstream because the Walking Dead crowd comes in, they fly through Walking Dead. What do they want to pick up? Why the Last Man, Watchmen, and then they might dabble into superheroes and pick up Dark Knight Returns, or Killing Joke or Black Science, and then it brings them right back into superheroes again. They go back and forth. So nobody's like it's very rare to see I'm a DC guy, I'm a Marvel guy now because it's very they're very overlapping now.
Well, yeah, I mean, but also they kind of I don't know, they blew that line, which made DC different from Marvel. I mean, they still have their differences, but
you know what it is though, the general public. doesn't know. They just see superhero movies. They don't know that Batman is not along.
Well, yeah. Well, there's how many people? Yeah, they don't.
But they kind of do now because it's pretty much like you see the Marvel logo and you see, they kind of figured out. But most of them, they just like, oh, I just like these characters. I don't really care who makes them, which is cool because back in the day, it was like, no, I'm a Marvel guy. I'm a DC guy. I mean, I was both. I mean, my heart belonged with Marvel because I love the characters, but I love the tradition with DC. You know, so, you know, like you don't have any allegiance to anything, Pat. You just like anything,
Yeah,
right?
this whatever character, pretty much. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Pat's a big Manipul fan, so.
Yeah, Francis Manipul. Yeah,
Manipul.
I'm detective right now.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it's
Beautiful
good
work.
stuff, Yeah.
Beautiful work. So, and then now you got the events coming up. You know, you got Convergence going strong. You got Secret Wars coming out.
Yeah.
So
It's a good time to get into the comics.
good time.
Good
The
time.
market's up big time because Star Wars it came back to Marvel, and holy crap, is it really? You know, Spider Gwen just hit with all the prints 300,000. I mean, who would have thought a book called Spider Gwen #1 would hit 3? That's amazing. So, you know, Batman with Snyder and Capullo was before the New 52. Batman wasn't selling like this. Batman was just like it sold regular. Detective sold okay. That was it. New 52 came out. Snyder's there, and now all of a sudden, Batman is the #1 book for like
Yeah, nothing comes close. Yeah.
40 straight months. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. Nothing even touches it,
Yeah.
unless it's an event book, you know, briefly.
Right,
But yeah, the New 52 crowd really changed things too. So I'm amazed at it. You know, I can't talk enough about how awesome it is, and you know, and like the kids. The other thing to go back on Free Comic Day is the kids stuff. We really like pushing kids stuff in our stores. And they don't make kids stuff anymore because the books are $4, which or $3 or $4, which I have a problem with because that's how much the regular books are.
Yeah.
So you got Jimmy who walks in here. He's 8 years old. He sees a new wall and it's about 30 feet long of all superheroes. You're like, yeah, guess what? You can't touch any of those because they're for like 16 up.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes over to the kids' wall and he sees Adventure Time, Archie, you know, a Marvel Universe book that's like $4, and he's like, oh, yeah, there's nothing here I want. So we add a lot of books. We make $1 for that have been code approved. A lot of them are from like the 80s and 90s, but they're all like mainstream characters like Iron Man, Batman, Spider-Man, you know, Fantastic Four, Superman, Wolverine.
Some exposure on some
Exposure.
Yeah.
So it is, but I hate that we have to push it to get to it. I don't like that. So they need to make stuff more kid friendly. I know DC just announced a girl line.
DC superhero girls.
Yeah, which is great because girls are really into it. I mean, my daughter loves it. She's only 3 years old,
Yeah.
and Johnny's daughter's almost 3.
Yep.
Same thing. They love this stuff. I mean, obviously because we're exposing them to it. But Teen Titans, they love Teen Titans Go. You know, like Wonder Woman, like Hulk, Iron Man, Spider-Man. The colors, it draws kids in. So it's not very like, oh, you're a girl, you can't like that. You know, they like
For
everything.
Well, even they had Super Barbie, which I know
Yeah,
they
Super
think,
Barbie,
but they had a movie and they had all the things.
Yeah, they buy a mask, the cape.
Mhm.
Both our daughters wear it running around
Yep.
like all the time. So I mean, again, we are kind of encouraging it, but they enjoy it. It's not like, oh, I don't want that. I mean, and we get girls here all the time buying books, and it's not just they buy everything. It's not just, oh, they're only buying this. They're buying everything, which is what you want. You want this to be globally, and diversity is king. I don't care what it is. You know, it happens. And it used to be back in the day, you'd see a girl and you'd be like, ooh, is she supposed to be here? Like jokingly, or is that someone's girlfriend? Now we have like 10 or 15 reservists that are girls, which is great.
Yeah.
So we want everybody again. We want kids, we want girls, we want boys, we want fathers, grandfathers, cousins, uncles, mothers, sisters, pets. I don't care. You want as many people into this market as you can get because with digital around, it is amazing that all this print is still here. You know why? Because this is cool. It's a clubhouse, and people like to show it off now. Showing it off is cool. You can't show off your digital collection, but you can show off by wearing a cool Guardians of the Galaxy shirt, you know, Destro hat. You know, come on.
I don't know.
You know, people watching Flash on TV, Arrow, and you know, Suicide Squad previews, all this stuff. So it's great that it's happening. So I mean, I love it. I can't get enough of it. So Pat, what are you doing this Free Comic Day? What are you gonna be doing?
The running register,
Nice.
right? I
Yeah.
think, right?
Yeah, well, that's what you're gonna be. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should be good. Should be a good time.
Johnny's gonna be
Expecting a big
volunteering
turnout.
after he's done pulling teeth.
Yep, I'll be here. I'll probably be helping with the
stuff.
the back issues.
Yeah, we're gonna unveil a new comic book shirt. So we do a shirt every year. Which we unveil on Free Comic Day. If you haven't seen pictures online, they're in a nice bright blue, just with a classic logo on the front. Very simple, not like last year's, which was a cool AC/DC design, which I love. But we make it a little bit different. So every Free Comic Day, we unveil a new shirt.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like our tradition too, which is very, very cool. But I'm still amazed how big Free Comic Day is.
Yeah, I mean, you're expecting a line, right?
We open at 8, and we have 2 locations. We have one in Manalapan and Wayne, New Jersey, if you're not familiar with New Jersey. Wayne, New Jersey is in the north, and Manalapan's like in the central Jersey. Wayne is our main location, but they both get lines. We open at 8. People usually, last year, they started line up around 5. So it might be earlier, I don't know. But it's down the entire strip center by the time we open. And it's like controlled chaos, because everybody comes running in, but they know...
It's all in good spirits.
It's all in good
Yeah.
spirits.
Yeah.
There's no jerks, which is I'm amazed at how they're all here for the same thing. So we have our sale obviously, and they run in for the free comics, but it's fun because you know almost all of them because it's a lot of regulars. So it's cool seeing everybody outside in line. We take a lot of pictures and video, put it on social media and YouTube and whatever. So it's neat, and
It's a good time.
it's a great time.
Yeah.
Why not? It's
Sure.
Free Comic Book Day, and the weather's gonna be great, especially when
Yep.
the weather's good. The weather's usually good. I don't remember a bad weather one. You've only been to like 2, Pat.
Yeah,
You
it's
can't
like
you don't count.
my second or third year. So.
Yeah, so it's gonna be cool. It's very, very cool. I'm excited about this year. Really am. And Age of Ultron's hitting. Which is already destroying the overseas. It's already past 200 million overseas, and it hasn't even opened up in China yet, which is the biggest market aside from the U.S. So I don't see this. I mean, what did the first one do? It did $1 billion. How much? Do you remember?
It was close to 1.5 billion.
1.5.
I think,
Yeah, this is gonna do like 1.8 probably.
Yeah.
I don't see why it wouldn't.
Yeah, the market's strong.
Yep, and then Ant-Man. I think Ant-Man's going to be a solid movie. He's going to do well. I have a feeling that they're going to package, because they're smart, they're going to package a new Star Wars trailer in front of Ant-Man. Because Ant-Man's
Makes
July,
sense, yeah.
and Star Wars is
Oh, it's
December.
July, not August.
Isn't it
it's
July?
July.
No, it's August. I'm sorry.
Is it August?
Jurassic World's July.
Yeah.
So I think it's August. So they'll package that, which is smart. They'll package... this is my theory. They're going to package a Star Wars trailer in front of Ant-Man in August, and then because early September, then the Star Wars toys hit.
Yep.
And then December, Star Wars hits. So they're gonna help. It's all one big family. The mouse, Disney. So, which I remember the backlash it got when Disney bought Marvel. It's like, oh my God, Mickey Mouse, Spider-Man, all this. I'm like, no, it doesn't. All it is. Disney owned Miramax, which Miramax had Pulp Fiction. Okay, they don't want anything to do with it. Disney bought Marvel because they want boys' toys, and they want to expand because Disney princesses dominate everything like that. But it's hard to sell to boys, so now they have Star Wars and Marvel. So now they have aisles and aisles of toys. If you go to a Disney store now, it's half Star Wars and Marvel. Great. But people, as soon as they hear something, they're like, "This is bad," and then they bought Lucas. Oh my God! No, it's an umbrella. It's all it is. It's just a connection. It doesn't matter. I hate people. Why don't they get like that? Pat, why do you get like that?
I don't get like that.
I know you don't.
I was all for it because Disney's gonna drive out like more of what you love, like so.
Well, that's the thing people were worried about, that they were going to do something to it.
They're not going to Disneyize it. They're not going to.
Well, no, of course not. But I think it's mostly like if you look at Warner does not have a good track history, I think, with DC properties. When they left them alone, they kind of were better off. But after they saw what Marvel was doing with Disney, of course they have to, that's why they have this whole move to California, because they want everybody together.
They want to be like an entertainment company.
But the problem is I don't think the people at Warner's understand it, get it, that the Disney people do. And they don't let the Marvel people have more free reign in the movies to put something that's going to attract everybody, as opposed to all different cooks trying to put something out. Which I'm sure it'll make money, but I'm sorry, it's not the same money as the Marvel movies are going to do.
Yeah, I mean the problem I think the problem is that Marvel is not a movie company. They make movies. It's a company that makes movies, where Warner Brothers is a movie company.
Yes.
So Warner Brothers' biggest mistake was when Green Lantern didn't work, they stopped. They should have just ignored it and made Flash or whatever else they're going to make. They stopped and just stood there, and as Marvel just ran right by them, because like I said before, Captain America and Thor.
Yeah.
I think if they came out with Warner Brothers, they didn't make enough money.
Yeah,
you know?
with Hulk's numbers, they wouldn't have kept going. But
No, but just ignore it. But not ignore it, but use it as a building block. Because now I feel like they're rushing it. I think they're going to be fun movies, entertaining, but it just
yeah, I'm still looking forward to them.
there's something about the feeling the Marvel movies have. I don't know how to explain it.
Well,
but
they're just fun.
When you were saying before, like I was always traditionally a DC guy.
Mm-hmm.
I just was tracked that way.
He would buy every DC book, no matter what it was, every month.
And then since pretty much New 52, I split my time with both.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't get any Marvel books because I really don't like the New 52. I mean, I like some things, but
You're traditional. You like the old stuff, yeah.
It's not as good.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot darker DC stuff, and I'm looking forward to all the Marvel movies. And I don't really. I mean, like I've never seen Man of Steel. I might see this new one. I don't know.
Listen, Man of Steel.
I'm not excited about it.
Yeah, Man of Steel was okay. I mean, it was a one-time thing. I saw it in the theater. I enjoyed it. I don't need to watch it again. You know, what would you think of Man of Steel, Pat?
I thought it was
when were you working here? No, you weren't working here. Were you?
I don't remember. I might have been.
But you weren't really diehard in the comics when it came out, though.
I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't really remember, but I did. I liked it. It was cool. You know,
it was okay. It's just like I'm not a Superman guy. I was
as
never a big fan of the other ones.
Marvel movies. It came out after Avengers and Iron Man 3, right?
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember.
But I remember like it was like really cool and whatever, but it wasn't as fun, I guess the word would be. Like it's very dark, and you know, I don't know. Just the Marvel movies, they're pretty lighthearted, easygoing. They're fun to watch. You know, there's not like a ton of I don't know what the word. It's not like a critically acclaimed movie.
Well, you know what it is? I compare Marvel movies to like the Star Wars feel. They're still fun, even if it's a serious tone and it's like good versus bad. They make it fun. Where I always feel like the DC stuff, they're just trying too hard. Like instead of just making it, they're like, well, they like this. No, just make a good movie and people will react to it. Instead of like, I always feel like some things are forced on you. Like I hate when there's change for the sake of change.
Mm.
And you know, the Batman Superman thing, I think it's going to be fine. I mean, I'm not going to be blown away by it because I'm not really a huge Batman fan, and I'm not a Superman fan. So I mean, I'm sure it's going to do very well in the theaters.
Yeah.
It's just the problem is for them to have to not force this, but they didn't take they should have just followed Marvel's plan. Because if you notice in the comic book industry, they kind of follow each other. Marvel doesn't invent, DC doesn't invent.
Yeah.
Marvel, DC reboots, Marvel reboots. They kind of go back and forth. It's almost like one thing. They all do the same thing. They just bounce off each other, which is fine because they respect each other. They don't care. But with the movies, instead of doing that, it's almost like they went backwards. Like, okay, we need to do Justice League first. No, you don't. The fact that there is a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, which barely got beat out by Hunger Games, the biggest movie of 2014,
Mm-hmm.
and there isn't a Justice League movie, it's a shame.
Yeah, I mean,
there's going to be a Suicide Squad movie before a Justice League movie.
Which you know, I get with the Harley factor a little bit, but
push that character. Yeah.
If you go on the street, though, this is how I always look at things. If you go into like a supermarket and you stand there with like signs or pictures, most people aren't going to know who Harley Quinn is.
No.
Chances are they're going to know who they're gonna know who Batman is, Superman is, Wonder Woman is. They know those characters because of the TV shows, you know, in the movies from years past. So my mother's going to know who they are. She's not going to know who Harley Quinn is.
Yeah.
We all do because we're in this bubble. You go outside the bubble, they don't. They will, but I feel like sometimes they don't get it. Just like try. Iron Man was a trial thing because Iron Man was like a C-list, B-list character at most.
Mm-hmm.
The first comic book I ever collected as a series was Iron Man in back issues because they were affordable and he was kind of neat looking. You know, because Spider-Man was too expensive, and you know, Iron Man, the only one I had to worry about was number 1 in 55. Other than that, they were all pretty cheap. And I liked it, but he wasn't like I'd be like, who's Iron Man? You know, like the Black Sabbath song. I'm like, no, he's a character. You know, Tony Stark. You know, now everybody knows who he is.
Yeah.
It's like Bruce Wayne, but it's okay to, you know. That's why I think Marvel not having Spider-Man or X-Men made them a stronger company because they would have just kept making great Spider-Man movies and X-Men movies. Mm-hmm. Now you're getting a Doctor Strange and Ant-Man and like you know, an Avenger movie, which I don't think you would have had before. You know, because Thor and Captain America and Iron Man wouldn't have been household names. You know, so you don't understand that because your generation knows this, but for like 50 years it wasn't like that. You know, your generation is the Iron Man, like Avengers
Yeah,
generation.
I mean, Iron Man's huge. Everybody loves
I
Iron
mean,
Man.
but if you look at it, I mean, like Avengers. I mean, Avengers was never the top people.
No.
I mean, it was never like the Justice League. Justice League was always the top heroes, the top Superman.
I never
Batman.
collected Avengers because when I got into Avengers in the late '80s, it was like I can't. Even, there was nobody on the team. I think Vision was the only one I recognized, but the rest it was like Hercules. Like
Mhm.
it was not. It wasn't Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. They were gone. They were long gone.
Yeah.
But Justice League. I mean, Justice League I wasn't into either because in the '80s it was
Justice League Detroit.
international. You know, with
Oh, you know, well, see, I liked it. Well, I mean, after that, I mean,
yeah,
I
with
enjoyed
Fire
it.
and Ice and Booster, which is fine. But it wasn't like Justice League was like it was like an All-Star game, All-Star team. I'm sorry.
Yes. Well, I mean, that was always the problem with those books. When you put all those people on it, you know, it's like, well, what are they going to fight? You know what I mean?
But you know what I'm always amazed at, and I still to this day is Batman stays the number one seller, okay, and then Wonder Woman sells as much as Superman. Then you look at Justice League, the numbers. Like to me, you would think just by accident Justice League would be the biggest selling book because you would think even if half the Batman fans buy it, half the this, but they don't.
It doesn't add up.
It doesn't add up like that. It's because if you ask like general public, what's the best selling books, they're gonna say Avengers or Justice League, but it's not. But you would think it is because it's like, oh, they're all in there. It's like, yeah, no, but people don't like that, which is weird. You know, like it's just one of those things. You know how the industry works for whatever reason.
Mhm.
But Pat, you're a new generation. You're like the movie generation.
Yeah.
And it's not a knock on you. That's
No, it's fine,
that's
yeah.
their exposure. And if some of you guys trickle into a store like this, which we hope you do,
Yeah.
or any store in the country or the world, and there are more stores popping back up, it's going to go in reverse. It's starting to pop back up now. You know, it's the better. I love going to Barnes and Noble and seeing a huge trade section. That's great. It helps us out. People are like, oh, it must hurt you. No, it doesn't. It helps us because it gets more exposure.
Sure.
The more, the better. You know, it's just because hopefully they'll buy Volume 1 there, and then they'll come by us and like, oh, you guys have, you know, Invincible Volume 4. I don't have that. You know, they'll buy it. So to go back on Free Comic Book Day, embrace it. Like I said, if you can, give back to the store you're going to. Again, you don't have to buy an expensive wall book, but pick up a keychain or a pop or a dollar book or something like that just as a thank you because, again, the books that we give out are not free. We have to pay for them. So they're not a lot of money, but it adds up when you buy a lot of them. So
Yeah, and just give something a shot. Pick something up.
was that?
Just give something a shot, you know.
No, I know.
Try
I mean,
something
it's
It's a good time.
yeah.
Especially here with the sale and everything. You might as well.
The first book you picked up was Kick-Ass 2, 3,
Well, Kick-Ass 1, I guess. But
Kick-Ass 1.
yeah. And then, I don't know, after that, I'd start picking up everything, so.
G.I. Joe got me into comics because I wasn't into comics.
Yeah.
I was into baseball cards. In my store was half cards, half comics, and I would go in there and buy my cards, and I was into G.I. Joe too. And I remember my mother brought me home a G.I. Joe comic book because at the time, in the supermarkets, they had like the comic book racks. I was like, oh, I know this store carries comic books. I went in there and I'm like, there's some G.I. Joe, and I saw Silver Surfer and Iron Man and like Ant-Man and Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm like, who are these awesome things that aren't Spider-Man and Batman and Wonder Woman? So I immediately fell in love. I had Turtle books in the '85, but I didn't. They weren't comic books to me. They were just books of They weren't superhero books, so they didn't get me into comics. I just liked the Turtles, you know. And what got you into that?
Yeah, that was the G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe?
Because I was, I collected the toys and stuff. And, I mean, well, Witch Girl used to have them, too. Remember, like, He-Man used to come with the comic book and stuff.
But but to me, it wasn't a comic. When I got that little comic book, I didn't look at it as a comic book.
No, I know.
You know?
I mean, but G.I. Joe is what did it. Like, you were into the toy and the thing, and you're like, oh, so you wanted to read about it. And, again, like, but it wasn't like I didn't go to a shop, though. Like, you went to, like, to the bookstore, like B. Dalton or whatever, and like they might have it at the what do you call it, the supermarket, like you said, but usually the bookstore. If I could find one. It wasn't until later that I actually found like a regular like comic book store that had like everything.
Yeah, I know. I remember stumbling into them and being like, oh my god, like I didn't know like this stuff existed. Like I just knew what was on TV or shown to me. Like I knew the Super Friends.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And but I didn't watch it religiously, so I didn't know who Green Lantern was, and Red Tornado. I didn't know any of those guys. I had no idea. I just knew the big guys.
Well, that's the thing that I remember because the Challenge of the Super Friends. That's the one with the Legion of Doom, and like it was on before because there was always pretty much a Super Friends in Saturday morning from like the late '60s and through like the mid '80s, but that one was on before we were born. But they used to play them on like in syndication, and I remember watching those ones, and that's why like my Solomon Grundy and like Brainiac and Scarecrow, because you're like, well, who are these people? Because you knew Superman, because there's the movie and stuff.
You just knew who he was, yeah.
And then Batman, the TV show, with they used to play a lot, so you used to see like the Joker and stuff. You kind of knew these other characters, but some of these ones, unless you read the comic book, you didn't know who these people were.
And it shows you how everything's full circle. Because Pat, you used to come here when you were a kid buying Pokemon cards.
Yeah, and I took a little bit of a leave.
You took a leave because you were growing up, in school, maybe discovered a girl or something.
Yeah.
But either way, you come back to it because you're in the comics. But you were here for Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
But you were still. I mean, maybe you noticed some stuff when you're younger. You just, and it brought you back in to look for it. You just don't realize it,
Yeah, definitely.
Like I said, I was buying baseball cards because that was what was big in the '80s. Buying baseball cards, and the store was half cards, half comics. It was called R&R Cards and Comics.
Yeah. I mean, like sometimes when you start off though, you don't really know where to start. So I mean, like
it's overwhelming.
And yeah, it's kind of overwhelming. So I mean, those who aren't that into it, like they could always just ask for recommendations.
But not just that though. Nowadays, it's very easy. Like I do this a lot. And I know you do this, Pat. If we're watching a TV show and I see an actor, I'm like, oh, what was he in? I go to IMDb and I look at everything else he's been into, and I see this whole thing. I'm like that with a character. If a new book comes out and I'm like, oh, who's this guy? And I'm like, oh, he popped up in Defenders back in the early '80s, and they just reused him. You can research him. So if you're like, hey, I kind of want to get into Moon Knight, but I don't know much about him. Go to Wikipedia. There's like 5 paragraphs, and you know everything about it. You don't have to be spoon-fed anything. And now you can. Back in the day, you were like, if you didn't have an index or somebody that could tell you, you had no idea who these guys were. Now you have no excuse. You can go to online. There's Comic Find, Wikipedia, anything you can look them up.
But even with that too, is you have trades.
Oh, there's trades now. Yeah.
When we were kids, there was no trades. I mean, they just started like there was like the greatest GI Joe, Joker stories. No, they were. I mean, like
but it was like,
but it wasn't a lot. It wasn't.
It wasn't in order.
You didn't have the choices. You had a few things, and they would play like they would pick the best things. Like it was because DC had those the greatest stories from the 50s, the greatest golden age. But it was a sampling, but you couldn't get the rest of the things. You would, unless you got like a back issue like in the 70s, those giant like 800-page super books or whatever. They would do a lot of reprints, but that was it. You couldn't get old issues.
Well, the funny thing was, and I don't know if you've ever read the older books, Pat, it would say on the bottom, like say you're reading like Spider-Man number 73, it would say, Scorpion's in there, it would say, check out, on the bottom, the editor would write like,
oh yeah,
with a little star, and you would look down the bottom, it would say,
oh yes,
see Spider-Man 45. It's like 45. How am I supposed to find Spider-Man 45? It's on issue 76. So that now there's no excuse for you not to.
Accessible, yeah.
It's very accessible. Social media's there, and you can whatever, but you can look it up.
But also, with that, the stigma isn't there anymore.
No, it's not. It used to be a stigma.
Yes, it used to be. I mean, you read comic books. Oh my God, you even talk about comic books.
When I saw that change, I don't know. Did you see Watchmen in the theater, Pat?
No, I didn't.
Okay, when Watchmen came out, they sold 1.1 million copies of that trade in the year the movie came out, which was insane. Because when Watchmen came out, that's when I really saw school kids, like high school mostly, walking around with a Watchmen trade. I'm like, what's going on? Because you used to hide it in your book bag. Not hide it, but it was like, look what I'm reading. I'm reading Watchmen. And that really changed things to where it became, it started really going into the mainstream for me in the store. And then now, Walking Dead changed everything. Because now it's like, Walking Dead is like, wow. Because people come in, they know who Kirkman is. Like, people reading Watchmen, most people didn't know it was Alan Moore. They just go, it's Watchmen, it's a movie. Yeah. But now, you say Kirkman, everybody knows who Kirkman is. It's big, it's huge. So, now it's cool. There's no more stigma. Well, it's great.
Well, the movies, too, of course, like you said, with the merchandising stuff. I mean, people wear 80 million different kinds of T-shirts, hats, whatever, anything that
socks,
has to do with it.
Gloves, superhero gloves. We learned about that today, Pat.
Yeah.
Like sports gloves. But I'm glad it's the way it is. Free Comic Day helps establish that and get it mainstream. So again, whether you go to Zapp Comics or a comic book store in California, please just say thank you. Like when you take the books, you see a lot of guys just come in and take books and go.
Yeah.
Thank them.
Past couple of years,
we're here all week, working overnights, getting stuff done, going to the warehouse and restocking and vacuuming and getting volunteers like crazy to help out that day. So make sure you thank everybody, and thank your store, your shop owner.
Yeah.
It's
And check it out.
common courtesy.
Yeah.
You know, they have record store day, they have small business Saturdays, they have everything like that. They're there for a reason. It's to give back. So, you know, Pat, I think you said 12 words this entire thing.
Nah, chill.
Yeah, he actually talked a lot in this one.
Did he?
Yeah. Compared to the other
a
one,
little
oh
bit.
yeah.
Don't say a lot. Said a
Well, in
little
comparison
bit.
part,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
When we finally do the Return of the Jedi with you, to me, Johnny, and you, I
Yeah.
promise you, you're not gonna shut up because I want to make you talk.
I'm gonna be laughing.
I know
can't take
you
that
are.
seriously.
So I promise you, soon we're gonna be doing a Return of the Jedi one, and Patrick is gonna be the guest of honor because it's gonna be in honor of you
Why?
because you got problems.
Because that Emperor.
Yeah. For some reason, Pat thinks the ending scene of Return of the Jedi when Vader picks up the Emperor and launches him down the chute. He thinks that's the funniest thing ever made. I don't know why.
Yeah.
So I want to ask him that when we do the whole podcast, just based on that scene.
All you have to do is watch it, man. You'll know.
But that's.
But yeah.
If you ever come in here and if you know who Patrick is, just say Emperor Return of the Jedi go, and Pat will just start laughing hysterically. He won't even be able to stand up.
Yeah. Good stuff, man.
So, good stuff?
Yeah.
All right, guys. Appreciate you guys coming along with us tonight, and hopefully we'll see you at Free Comic Day. You know, so for Johnny and Patrick and Corey, and thanks again, guys.
good night.
Bye.
Zapp Comics Radio Podcast. Zapp Comics Radio Podcast. Zapp Comics.